The family members of this woman thought that they had found her remains 40 plus years ago, but they recently found out that that wasn't the case at all. How did this even happen? So back in 1981, a woman named Rebecca Sue Hill disappeared from Arkansas. Now, her family didn't know what happened to her, but in either later 1981 or 1982, some remains were found, and a family member identified those remains as that missing child, Rebecca Sue Hill. All this time, her family has thought that Rebecca Sue Hill died. I don't know if they thought that she was murdered or how it was that she died, but they thought that she was dead. And that has been the way that it was until sometime last year. It was sometime around November 2023 that the case of Rebecca Sue Hill actually collided with a NamUs profile known as UP6037. If you don't know what NamUs is, that is the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. It's where it's like a website that unidentified remains are put into online for investigation ease. So in April 1994, the remains of a woman were found in Altoona, Florida. So I don't know a whole lot about Florida, but it seems like there was a dirt road in the Ocala National Forest that was near the Lake Dorr recreational area. And in that area in April 1984, they found the remains that they believed to be a woman between the ages of 17 and 20 years old. They thought that she stood 5 to 5'1" in height, and she weighed around 100 pounds. Now, in Florida, that investigation started. They believed that the woman had died several weeks before her remains were found in that area. And they also believed that her death was due to a homicide, but they didn't know who she was, where she came from, or have any actual information about what could have happened to her. So because they didn't have any actual information to go off of, they called her Judy Doe. There was a facial recreation that was done, but I mean, honestly, when I see the side-by-sides, I don't think that they look alike at all. So that's the first issue. The second one is that there was no way that the facial recreation was going to help solve this crime, because the person that it actually turned out to be, they already had a body for that, and it was several states away. I would assume that Florida has been revisiting this case, over the years periodically, but it wasn't until 2023 that they decided to try to use genetic forensic genealogy in order to attempt to solve the case. And, for their part, they did try really hard, even up until this point in time, to figure out who these remains belonged to. They tried the facial recreation. They tried using dental records. The normal things simply were not working. So in 2023, they reached out to Othram Laboratory, which is actually the same company that helped identify the person of interest, Billy Jack Links, in the Morgan Nick case. They reached out to them, and they were interested in doing some genetic genealogy testing in order to find relatives that were close to this person, the remains. And they were able to eventually find a relative that was a close relative of this individual, Rebecca Sue Hill. But the thing was, like I said, had it not been for genetic genealogy, I don't think that this ever would have been anything that was solved, because they already thought that they had the body of Rebecca Sue Hill. And that's no fault to the police, because a family member is the one that identified the remains. I don't even know how that happens. And honestly, a follow-up question to all of that, who do those remains belong to? What about that family? Where is that person? You know what I mean? And I did look. I didn't see anything that led me to believe that they have the answers to those questions. Hopefully they'll have them in the future. Like I said, this is not on the fault of the police. This is absolutely I guess it's just, I don't want to say it's on the fault of the family member, but just something that happened, probably out of, overwhelming grief or something. They just misidentified her. So because of that misidentification, they couldn't have just gone, the police in Florida could not have just gone into a database and seen like, oh, okay, these are all the people in that age range that went missing or were missing during the time that these remains were found, because Rebecca Sue Hill wouldn't have been listed in the database. She wasn't missing, supposedly. So having been able to use the forensic genealogy, they found that this family member was actually a sister to Rebecca Sue Hill. And it seems like they're not exactly sure when it was that Rebecca Sue Hill disappeared, but to say that she was either 16 or 17 years old. Of course, that's been a long time ago. And I'm sure that because they thought they had the remains already, those memories were just wouldn't be important for everybody to remember, okay, my family member disappeared on July 1st, 1981. That's when they were last seen, because you think that you already know what happened. And also, police also had a person of interest in the case who was a person of interest or whatever, convicted murderer that was in prison in Arkansas already. And that person actually died in 2022. Michael Ronning is the person that they believed to be responsible for the murder of Rebecca Sue Hill. He actually had ties to Florida, but he also had ties to a lot of other states where there were, women that were murdered. Michael Ronning died serving a life sentence for murder of another woman. And he had admitted to at least 6 other murders that seemed similar to Rebecca's murder. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that Michael Ronning was probably actually possibly responsible for the murder of Rebecca, but he's just not here to answer those questions at this time. Obviously this is just one of those things where the more information I have, the more questions I have, because I don't know, so many questions are coming to mind right now. Michael Ronning, is there a way to genetically tie him to this case? Rebecca Sue Hill, why does her facial reconstruction not look anything, in my opinion, like she actually looked? What even happened with that? Whose remains are the ones that were misidentified as Rebecca's remains? What was the manner of death? Just so much information or so many questions that I have. And right now the answers just aren't out there. I am glad for her family that they do know, at this point in time, the truth. These are Rebecca's remains. She was likely murdered. This is the person that likely did it. I'm sure that, is helpful to them. Obviously, that's the most important thing, because you're not going to get Michael Ronning to serve another day in prison. He died in prison. I mean, and honestly, I kind of think 6 or 7 other women that he said he was involved, claimed responsibility or involvement in their murders. I kind of want to look a little bit further into Michael Ronning and just see what were those other murders and why are they similar to why is it being said that they are similar to Rebecca's? Anyway, I will update if I see any other information in this case.